The chair calls this special listening meeting of the American Lake Management District Number 1 to order on July 28th at 5:08 p.m. Have three we have three documents that were submitted. Does anyone have any questions on?
Sherry, can we do roll call?
I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. The chair backs up and calls on Katie Foster to read the ground rules for the listening session.
I think first it's roll call, so I will call the roll first. Chair Reed,
Here.
Kurt Spengath, here. Jeff Cox,
Here.
Wes Donat,
Present.
and it looks like Eric Schmidt and Todd Zukowski may be absent as we don't see them in Zoom and they are not attending in person. However, we do have a quorum.
We will start discussing the listening session. We have three document people that.
Can I read the ground rules first, if I may, Chair Reed?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, please, Katie.
Thank you for coming for tonight's meeting. We want to start with our ground rules so everyone is on the same page and to keep this meeting as productive as possible. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes to speak. We will have a timer running on the screen. Once everyone is present who wishes to speak has had the chance to do so, we will open the floor to allow anyone who wants to say more a second chance to speak, also for 5 minutes. Please do not interrupt when someone else has the floor, and please no side conversations when someone else is speaking. We want to be able to hear everyone. We are here to listen, but may ask clarifying questions, and at the conclusion of this meeting, we will discuss next steps, but we will not be amending the work plan at this meeting.
So the first three documents were submitted. Does anyone on the committee have any questions on either Kaylee Rains, Don Russell's, or Jared Savage's emails that were submitted?
Are any of those three making a presentation today?
They did not sign up to speak. No, they just wanted to present their materials.
I did not have questions on it.
Then the next speaker is Stan Kovar. Okay. On Zoom or not? Not, okay. Brian Ford, please come to the microphone to present.
Now, everybody can hear me? Okay, thank you, Katie. Hello, my name is Brian Ford. I was originally planning to present my proposed pilot program today, which all of you guys have a copy of up there. At a minimum, I would encourage the city to consider simple signage promoting clean, drain, and dry practices. Keeping invasive mussels out of the lake is vitally important, and partnerships with organizations like the American Lake Improvement Club could be a helpful resource as future LMD and city priorities are developed. As we look toward the next LMD, I also support expanding its scope to include invasive species, not just aquatic plants. Preventing zebra, golden, and quagga mussels from entering American Lake would be a meaningful and long-term legacy. I'd also like to speak briefly about something broader, the tone and direction of the conversation around lake health and what it says about how we move forward as a community. What concerns me is some of the discussion is becoming more reactive than constructive. At times, it feels like the conversation is being driven by a few individual preferences or frustrations, rather than a shared balanced understanding of the lake as a whole. That's not how our community will build something that lasts. My family has had a property on American Lake since the 1930s, and this lake has been a part of my life for all 44 years. I care deeply about it, not just as a homeowner with 150 feet of shoreline, but someone who spends time on it almost every day. I paddleboard regularly, often for an hour or more, and I see firsthand what's happening out there. From my perspective as a constant observer, I'm not seeing the level of crisis that is sometimes being described. Cyanobacteria, for example, is often discussed as an immediate recreational or public health threat. In reality, the blooms we've seen tend to occur in the winter months when usage is low. Of course, when it is present, people should avoid contact and not allow pets to drink the water. To my knowledge, there have been no people killed or made sick due to cyanobacteria. Filamentous algae is another example. It is present, but it is not widespread lake-wide issue. It appears to be more localized, primarily in shallow areas, and not at the scale it is sometimes portrayed. That doesn't mean there's no room for improvement. There absolutely is. From what I've seen over time, there's been an increase in indicator species like river otters and bald eagles. Those are not signs of a collapsing ecosystem. They are signs that in many ways the lake is functioning well. So yes, let's improve. Let's evolve the LMD. Let's make it more effective and forward-looking. But let's not be driven by the loudest voices or the most urgent sounding narratives. Volume doesn't equal accuracy, and strong opinions don't replace good processes. What will make the difference is balance, thoughtfulness, and a willingness to listen, not just to speak. I also wanted to acknowledge the volunteers on this committee. This is not easy work. It takes time, effort, and a willingness to engage with complex and sometimes conflicting viewpoints. That deserves recognition and respect. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing, a healthy, thriving American lake. Let's make sure we pursue that goal in a way that is grounded, inclusive, and sustainable, not reactive. Thank you.
Janet Spengath.
Hello, I'm Janet Spingath. To follow on Brian's heels, I'm going to be drawing our attention to the invasive mussels that threaten our lake safety. Zebra and quagga mussels are, wait a minute, do I signal you when I want to change? Oh, okay. Yeah. They're native to Ukraine and Russia, and they have a long history of invasion and successful establishment outside their native habitat. We think they were first discovered in the Great Lakes when they came in on boats. The region that they came from have fish that eat them, and they exist together. We don't have those fish in the US. So number 2, please. They start out as literally a speck of dust. They're called velingers. You can barely see them, and they grow. This is one of them at full adult size. You can see the boat on the right. Those are propellers and underwater. That kind of growth takes about a year, 6 months to a year to grow. Number 3, please. They are prolific feeders, and they can quickly cause damage. You can see the propeller. That's probably been in a lake for a year. And then we have the curb side of the lake that's just encrusted. Once they're established, they cause catastrophic ecosystem impacts. They outcompete the native mussels and the other filter-feeding invertebrates, removing habitat for invertebrates. Let's go to the next one there. You can see the tiny little dots, little blue dots. That's the mussel colonies, and they are filtering the water. They're eating bacteria, algae, and they're feeding so much that they kind of clear up the water, and they reduce the food available for the small fish. And with reduced small fish, you also have less big fish. You're also getting clearer water deeper, so you're getting more species growing underwater. So you can see what happens to an ecosystem like that. Could I have the next one, please? Right there. So the Washington economy depends on irrigation. The potential losses to habitat, recreation, income makes preventing invasion a priority. They clog the water intakes in all kinds of structures and fish screens and boat engines. They overtake docks, buoys, boat hulls, anchors, and beaches. And what you see on the right there is an irrigation pipe that's clogged with these mussels. Next, please. So since the 2000s, they've been spreading westward, and Nevada, California, Montana, down there where our big recreational reservoirs are being impacted. The red and green and yellow are all places where these zebra mussels, the mussels are growing. If you can see little yellow squares, those are where treatments have failed. On this map, I found 2 tiny purple spots, and those were the ones where the eradication worked. Next, please. So when they're detected, shoot, I wanted to show you this thing, but it's like a plastic. I'll show it to you. It's on my seat. I'll just lift it up. But it's just a plastic set of plastic pieces on a pipe. And when we pull those out of the water, when you can see even one, that's how they detect them. So they don't have to do a lot of testing. Just look for these tiny things. Once they're detected, the emergency plan is put into effect. It would involve quarantining the area if we had them in American Lake where they're found. Yep, that's it. Limiting access to the water body, putting up silt curtains around treating the water, and increasing monitoring of boats and sampling of water. Next, please. So the most recently found was in 2022, Idaho discovered quagga mussels in the Snake River. And next one, please. So their response was to spend over $3 million to flood the whole Twin Falls area of the Snake River with over 40,000 pounds of prescribed copper-based treatment. They had anticipated some of the impacts, like scores of sturgeon stocked from a hatchery up to 8 feet long and 35 years old turning up dead. But other effects of the treatment and the fate of the copper itself were unknown until now. So 2 years after the treatment, a new study from the USGS detailed that the copper destroyed up to 90% of the invertebrates living in the area, putting at stake food resources for future fish populations in the river. Over 7,000 pounds of copper have settled into the riverbed, according to the study, potentially remaining toxic. And the bad thing was that it did not eliminate the mussels. A year later, the state officials found more larvae, and they had to apply another round of copper. So this one says, move up to next to the last slide, please. No, that's the last slide.
Janet.
Just before that.
Ms. Benguet, that is 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. There you go. Don't move a muscle. Thank you.
Go.
Go back. Right there. Beautiful. Perfect, perfect. Thank you all. My name is Joel Verana. I'm president of the American Lake. Oh, is that too loud? Better?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm president of the Eagle Point Homeowners Association, as well as living on the shoreline of American Lake. So let's go a couple slides ahead here. Oop, doop. Again. There you go, right there. So it's important to know that American Lake is not a flow-through lake. We don't have rivers and streams feeding the lake, and nor do we have any kind of outlet like that, other than a small weir at the other end of the lake. Normally our elevation is 233. That has gone up and down, and hopefully we have it a little bit more stable now. Let's go up with another one. Right there. Our watershed area right in here is what feeds the eastern edge of American Lake. And then that water comes out and goes through this area into the ocean. This is a huge area that feeds our lake. It encompasses Parkland and Spanaway and Fort Lewis and just a lot of property. So let's go to the next one. This water comes in at a rate of about 1,600 pounds of phosphorus a year, along with all the groundwater. A lot of that sits in the sediment right here. 1,200 pounds of that goes out. I don't know how they get these numbers, but they seem to be accepted. The residence time of water in our lake is about 2.8 years. And really, other than our little weir at the other end, there's no other way for water out. So a lot of sediment stays. It's very slow moving throughout. Next. This is our weir at the southernmost end of American Lake in what we call Little America. Next. This is about where the weir is right here, and it comes out into Sequalichi area. This is why it's critical that JBLM and the armed forces are involved with keeping American Lake really, really strong and stable, because they use that water as their form of drinking water and overall use in Lake Sequalichi. So it's important that this be right, and they're a big, big player for us, and we need to really work with them seriously for their own benefit as well. Next. So what we find is that there's certain seasons that this lake goes through. In the early season, we have a green filamentous algae that grows in the base of the lake in low shorelines, and it eventually grows with enough fervor that it breaks off and develops these pads like this. This then goes to the shoreline. Next. And it first looks like this, and then it looks like this. This is me scooping up on my shoreline the stuff that we have. And actually, is that handy? I'll do this real quick. I was going to save it for later, but that I have on my shoreline. And I live with this every day. It is crazy. You can't use that shoreline. You really cannot, right? It is not something that anybody should have to live with. It is not the problem of American Lake. It is simply, it's my problem. It's not American Lake's problem, but you know what it is? It's a sign. It tells us where American Lake is going. We need to work with this lake in its earliest stages. How wonderful is that?
It's
I know.
delightful.
Isn't that though? Doesn't that just feel refreshing? And so I'm going to tell you that this is a sign. It's a symptom. It's not the disease itself. It's telling us that this is the direction this lake is going. 7 or 8 years ago, I had none of this. I've lived in my house 22 years. I had none of this. It's just in the later years that this is starting to develop more and more and more, and we've done nothing different in our communities. So it's a sign that the lake is getting ill. And it's easier to treat an illness in its earliest stages. We need to start working with this before we turn into Spanaway Lake or Lake Steilacoom or, God forbid, Wahop Lake. We have an opportunity to do this now when it's early and inexpensive and ecologically friendly. We can't afford to wait until somebody says, oh my God, now we're in crisis. I'm not saying we're in crisis right now. I'm saying we have an opportunity to prevent crisis right now. And we need to take care of this, right? Next. So as the algae season goes away, the green filamentous algae season goes away, we start getting into the milfoil season in midsummer more. And that is our Eurasian milfoil that you folks have been treating really pretty well. And we're appreciative of that, very much so. But we can see the matting that it produces. It's not safe to swim in. It's hard on boats. It's not good as they decay. And the biomass then
Thank you,
Mm-hmm.
comes
Mr.
forward
Varner.
again. It just provides more and more
Mr.
fertilizer
Varner.
for everything. My time's up.
Thank you. That has
Thank
been
you.
5 minutes.
Did you like this? What do you think, Heidi?
Now we will start on the walk-ins. The first speaker is Mark Pfeiffer.
Hello, I'm Mark Pfeiffer. I live on Dolly Madison Street on North Shore of American Lake. Everybody that's spoken so far has, absolutely in agreement. All of these things need to be done. But the reality is that you're going to have to ask for a lot more money when this current 10-year cycle is up. And I think that's when? Next, 2028? Yeah. And now is the time that you have to start doing it. And by that, I mean, you need to put together a public relations item that goes out to all those property owners to let them know what's been done and to let them know what needs to be done, but there is no money to do it because we started off with just Eurasian milfoil. And I think there was at least what, a $75,000 grant and an earlier one for 45,000, you know. So the bottom line is that you're going to be asking the 360 or so property owners on American Lake to fund this whole thing. The city's not contributing any money. In fact, the LMD budget has to pay the city for administrative support. And at some point, the property owners are going to figure out that, wait a minute, there are a lot more people in Lakewood and outside of Lakewood who enjoy American Lake, much more so than Bradley Lake, where only the residents can enjoy it, or Lake Steilacoom, which primarily are the residents that enjoy it. But American Lake is not the same, you know, is not the same thing because a lot of people are there. So, you know, maybe the boat launch fees should all go into the LMD. Or maybe the city should take a look at, you know, the American Lake is a huge draw for, you know, for tourists, fishermen, just people that want to recreate in the summer. We live right near American Lake Park, about 10 houses away, and you can hear them over there. It's the place is packed. So the property owners on American Lake are paying the freight. Now, 66 cents or 67 cents, I forget what it is. It's chicken feed. That's nothing. You're going to need a lot more. And you're going to have to sell them on the idea well before you go out and ask them to ballot or to vote on whether or not they're going to accept the new assessment. That's it. All this other stuff is great. It's great to know about it. Don's done great work. Mr. Ford, all these people have you know, they know what's going on. But if you don't have an LMD, then nothing is going to get done. Nothing. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer.
Jeff Tepper.
That clear? My name is Jeff Tepper. I'm a retired geology professor from the University of Puget Sound. I taught there for 20 years until I retired in 2021. My connection to American Lake is that I taught an environmental geochemistry class, and the goal of that class was to teach students how to sample, analyze, and interpret water and sediment samples. And we did this by visiting different lakes every time I taught the course. And so we came to American Lake twice. And I also mentored a student thesis project who did a study of a sediment core from here, which as far as I know is the only detailed data we have on the sediment from American Lake. So that work is the basis for, I have some knowledge of American Lake, which is relevant to the question of how you might want to treat it for hazardous algal blooms. And I'll come back to this point at the end, but I want to make it clear that what Joel was talking about on his beach and passing around, that's a different issue. And those two issues are connected. Aquatic plants and algal blooms are connected, but they're different. The threat is different and the solutions are different. So one thing I learned in 20 years of studying lakes was that everyone is different. And that was a surprise to me, but it means that a treatment plan has to be tailored to the individual characteristics of any given lake. For the past couple of years, I've been working with Kyle Steelhammer and Northwest Aquatic Management at Lake Steilacoom, where we've been using powdered iron, which is sometimes called zero-valent iron, as a way to mitigate algal blooms. And it's been very successful. It's non-toxic. It's basically how nature works, and it's actually cheaper than the alternatives. It might be a good solution at American Lake, but you need some more data before you can make that call. So my purpose here tonight is mainly to suggest a couple of questions that I think need to be answered before you can make an informed decision about how to proceed with this. The first question is, how much water enters the lake from vents on the bottom springs? Where are those springs, and how much phosphorus they deliver? And the reason that's important is because at Lake Steilacoom, we actually apply iron directly to the vent, and we intercept the nutrients, primarily phosphorus, as it enters the lake. And that's much more economical than trying to treat the entire lake if you can just cut it off at the source. The second question is, what is the iron content of the sediment? And more specifically, what's the iron to phosphorus ratio? And that's important because in nature, iron is the main mechanism by which phosphorus is bound. But you have to have enough iron to bind the phosphorus that's available. And in nature, that's about a 10-to-1 ratio, 10 iron for every 1 phosphorus in the sediment. The project my student did in 2014 suggests that at American Lake, it's actually below that number, which would imply that it might be beneficial to supplement the natural iron in sediment with some amendment of zero-valent iron. The last question is, we need to know more about the chemistry of the water column. How does the chemistry vary from the surface to the bottom? And we particularly need to know how this varies over the course of the year. I'm particularly interested in dissolved oxygen, dissolved phosphorus, total phosphorus, iron, nitrate, and hydrogen sulfide. None of what I'm proposing requires hiring an expensive consultant. I think you've done a lot of work already. All of this, I think, could be done in 1 year. So the ideal scenario would be collect data for a year, and then you're ready to make an intelligent decision about how to proceed. For water chemistry, I would suggest monthly sampling. The analyses ought to go to a commercial lab so nobody has questions about their quality, but the actual data sampling could be done either by someone like Kyle or somebody who lives at American Lake who is committed to learning how to do this in a rigorous way and as an obsession with precision. Lastly, and this is probably the most important thing, and this kind of echoes the previous speaker, now is when you have to start educating people about how the lake works. And for example, there is a distinction between aquatic vegetation, such as washing up on Joel's Beach, and a hazardous algal bloom. So vegetation is unsightly, smells bad, and inhibits recreation. Algal blooms cause lake closures, kill pets, etc. So they're different, but they're connected because they're both using the same nutrient sources. So
Thank you,
now is
Mr.
the time
Tepper.
to start teaching people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kyle Steelhammer.
Hello, my name is Kyle Steelhammer. I am the president and owner of Northwest Aquatic Management. And I've been asked to discuss a few points this evening as an industry professional. This is only my second meeting, and I apologize if I jump around due to the time constraints. Our company's tried to get on the permit to be able to do work on American Lake, and we have not dealt with another government agency that has opposed having more than one contractor on the Department of Ecology permit coverage. We have never experienced the issues we've experienced with the American Lake Management District and the city of Lakewood. A couple of reasons to have multiple contractors on the permit is some contractors are better than others at specific aspects of lake management. Also, if one contractor gets too busy, then the other contractor could step in and complete the project. We've worked with around 10 LMDs specific, and we specifically hold over 30 permits. The best districts or cities that we've dealt with as a contractor are Spencer Lake, Lake Lawrence, Long Lake, and the city of Medina. Long Lake, Lake Lawrence, and the city of Medina have multiple contractors on their permit for specific reasons. Having experience in specific applications like zero-valent iron, like Jeff just discussed, is very important. Other contractors and consultants have passed up on ZVI as an option, so it doesn't make any sense to have a contractor that doesn't have the experience or tries to persuade customers away from it. Our support staff for ZVI includes retired professors like Jeff and scientists like Dawn, who lives on American Lake, to help us determine application rates and implementation. Everybody needs to be on the same treatment plan. Timing windows for American Lake. As I said, this is my second meeting. At the first meeting, timing windows for American Lake, everybody said it was July 15th. The timing window for restricted herbicides is June 1st, according to the timing window map from Fish and Wildlife. This date has a great advantage because you can get herbicides in the water quicker and you're treating immature small seedlings instead of large mature plants. The correct information needs to be gathered and delivered to the decision makers. If there is information that is gathered, it would benefit the whole community if it was double-checked by a professional in the industry, so we made decisions on the correct information, not information that is believed to be true by non-professionals in lake management. I do have the website. If you guys want to go on the map, it's an interactive map, and you can click on American Lake and get the timing window. Timing windows are also very important. I already mentioned this a little bit. I'm kind of out of my system here, but the earlier you can get the product in the water column to treat immature vegetation, the better off the lake will be. The smaller the plant is, it's much easier to treat than fully mature plants. Most product labels specify this with specific instructions. The heavier or thicker the vegetation, the more product you need. Also, we've always noticed that our customers really enjoy the 4th of July holiday, and if you live on a lake, you usually recreate in the water. Our goal as a contractor is to make the 4th of July holiday enjoyable for shoreline residents because summers are short. Waiting to perform the first treatment of vegetation until almost 2 weeks after the 4th of July holiday, when the plants are very large and immature, is unacceptable. I have also talked to Gabe Mabel from Fish and Wildlife. He's the biologist for American Lake, and he is willing to work with us if we needed to change the timing window, if we see fit. But a June 1st timing window is extremely early compared to any other lakes around the area. Steilacoom Lake is 16th of June. And then lastly, I would recommend increasing your meeting frequency and incorporate a question and answer phase so the information can be discussed quickly instead of waiting weeks or months. I appreciate the opportunity and hope the American Lake Management District and Northwest Aquatic Management can brainstorm, design, and implement a successful management plan in the near future. Thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question? What's the end of the timing application window? It's June 1st to what?
I'd have to check for American Lake. It changes, so I'd have
Okay.
to check for American Lake.
Okay, thanks.
John Donahue?
Hi, I'm Sean Donahue. I live on the lake in a sense, we're a part of a group that has access, and I use that lake very frequently, year round. I kayak out there, usually at night. I'm taking photographs of wildlife. And that's part of my enjoyment. My point, though, is to tell you that there's a situation that seems low risk, low adversity at the moment. However, there's a strong possibility because of constant accumulation that this can rise to a situation that will be devastating in some aspects. Now, I can't tell you how that will be, but I will point out this. Economically, if this lake ends up turning down the road generations from now, because we didn't do anything, it's going to economically impact this area. Everybody that comes to this lake right now, and it's growing by numbers every year. In fact, there's a new park going in over by Murray that I understand. They're going to redo that area over there so we can get more people in the lake. They've redone American Lake and expanded the parking lot there. So we now have at least a third more cars, which means a lot more people. And they've done the same at Harry Todd. Economically, what that tells me is that we have thousands of people coming here every week. And when they come to have a good time. They stop and they buy goods and they get services. They buy food, they go to the pub, they get coffee, they use the American Lake Market. They also stop at our gas stations and we draw taxes from all that. When that ceases to exist because the optics change overnight because one dog dies, is going to be bad. And I don't know how bad, I can't tell you that. I'm not a forecaster like that. But I'll tell you this, it will affect more than just the sales tax revenue. Property tax will be affected because people want out. Now, I already know a couple of homeowners when the lake level was very low, told me they're going to sell because they cannot use their watercrafts. And they were going to walk away from this. That's tax revenue, property tax. Because over time, people are going to say, why are we not having people replace this? Why aren't they wanting to buy the properties when the word optics are, we're not treating something that's easy to treat now versus later. I will be the first one to tell you, when I'm out there on that lake at night or an early evening, I don't see a lot of problems. I really don't, not yet. But I look at the numbers. The numbers start adding up. When you look at the phosphorus that's coming in versus phosphorus going out, 400 pounds a year, there's got to be some sort of treatment to prevent that becoming a problem for us. Now, I'm not saying we have to go crazy or spend billions of dollars, but we really need to get serious about this problem. We need to talk about it in the sense that it's not just our generation, it's other generations. And we need to look at this and say, what's a positive fix that we can go after and do it faster than waiting for timetables but work the problem. Let's get it done, because when it does go adverse on us, we're going to see the lake shut down. When the lake shut down, all these people that are coming to us from Trapp and the other lakes that have experienced problems like this are going to go elsewhere, and they're not coming back. Once they leave, they won't come back. And that's tax revenue this town will lose. People will move away. That's tax revenue this town will lose. So the consequences isn't just a matter of the lake being bad. The consequences are economics and what we will experience afterwards. And I'd like to donate my time back to the gentleman that was talking about treatment, if that's possible.
Donating time is not possible. Everybody gets 5 minutes, but after the end, after everybody has gotten a chance to speak, we will do additional rounds for
I
people.
didn't know, I've never been to these meetings before, but if it was possible, I would donate it to them. Thank you.
No problem.
So can I ask you a clarifying question too? How do I ask this? What specific lake problems or what priority of the specific lake problems do you see? I mean, I understand the ones that everybody has mentioned, but when you're talking in generalities about the lake, what specific ones are you talking about would be, in your mind, the priority of what you tackle?
Well, in the wintertime, when we have the winds predominantly out of south-southwest and they're blowing our way, we do see a lot of debris blowing up on our beach, and we see some of the stuff that Joel is pointing out and showing up. Having been out paddling around on that lake, and I'm down on his side, and I go looking, and that's more like a still water area. It's not upwelling like ours is. You'll see that down there, you don't want to go to his dock if you got a boat. You don't. If you had a jet boat, you would definitely not go in there because you're just going to clog the motor up. It'll be shot. You're not going to get the coolant out of it in a regular motor because it's going to be full of fulfillment and it's going to kill the motor. So those are the problems that will be occurring. Now, when I say problems, I'm saying that we're looking at the information, the data we have already, and we have things that we can look at and be operating about, and not doing anything at the moment isn't the course we need to do. We need to take a course and get ahead of this before it becomes a problem. Before we have the cyno, before we have a lake that's detoxifying, that needs detoxifying, that doesn't have enough oxygen in it, or over-oxygenation. We need to really get this settled. Did I answer your question?
Not exactly, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is there's been described a phosphorus problem,
Mhm.
invasive plants such as Joel's talked about, milfoil, potential for other invasive species. Obviously, in different parts of the lake, there's different, they dominate differently in different parts of the lake.
Mhm.
Do you have a feeling for, in your perspective, which of those comes in at maybe the highest priority?
From thinking about the information that's presented to me as I see it, it's the phosphorus, because the phosphorus has multiple organisms that feed upon it and live upon it. And the way it gets into this lake is possibly we can treat it. And if that's the case, we can control it to a certain extent. By doing that, we will either delay or eliminate a problem in the future. Okay.
Thanks.
All right, and then just for the background, I was a budget analyst for the National Weather Service, Alaska region, the whole region. And then for a short time, I was the CFO of the VA hospital in Oklahoma City. I do have an MBA, and I'm looking at this in that scope. There's a bigger problem. We just need to get to it and do it.
Okay, thank you.
Cool.
Yes.
1st to August 31st. That's the timing window.
Gene Kangason? That an R? King Geyser, did,
Hi, my name is Jean Congeser, and I live at Eagle Point, American Lake, and I pay dues to our HOA, and I help fund the milfoil. So I'm part of the project, even though I don't live right on the shoreline, I'm about a block back. And that's a question I believe somebody else in this room has about, what about the rest of the people at the lake besides the shoreline owners? So I just want to show you what we wake up to from about March on, and I know you've seen all the slides, but this is it. And there's people that were going to be here last week that aren't here, but this is what they're waking up to, and it's much worse as the season goes on. Do a little presentation here. Even fish are being trapped in the weeds. Fish are dying in the weeds. People wonder about the ecology and some of the situations that are going on by the docks, and people work on it, and they've tried to do things, but they can't solve the problem. So why I'm here is because I've been a part of this since October of last year, and I realized the information I was hearing was very important, and I wanted to know how other people felt about it. So being on the HOA board with the board, agreeing, we opened up our lodge. We started inviting people over. We had one private meeting with just our own HOA, the homeowners there, and then we opened it up to the lake. And we have actually been educating and helping people hear the information, let them make the decisions. And that's what I'm about, communication and education. And then you make up your mind how you feel about it. With that, I've been working with the team, our HOA team, to actually bring the resolution to actually see something done about it. What I couldn't find when I started this process, I couldn't find who was in charge. It might be really logical to some of you that are more connected than the rest of us, but I'm a why person. Why are we doing? What's the vision? What's the purpose? And who do we go to? And where's the chain of command? And when you started talking to different people, everybody went this way. And so where does the buck stop? And so I'm very thankful for this meeting because I feel things are starting to really shake out and we're getting more of a ladder or a process here. Actually, coming to the first LMD meeting was great. And Mr. Westonott over here actually had a document that he was looking at during that meeting. My husband asked for a copy, wanted to take a picture of it. And he said, no, if you need anything, just ask me. And he's been very generous. And Katie and the team here has been very generous in helping us. But that document tells us the process of how we accomplished the goal. And actually we need to come through a process to make it happen. The steps are outlined. We have the steps. I've given you the steps because this was Weston's document. It was retyped. I have the old copy, but it was retyped for y'all. And then basically a citizen petition. So we sent out a citizen petition, and Kate Reed got a whole packet of those. The city council got the whole packet. We've been to the city council, I think, 4 times, and many people, different people spoke. The petition is a really important step in here because in the planning and the proposal to go forward, the public process, from that document that Weston had, we're in that process right now, I believe, and Weston can correct me if I'm wrong, but there has to be a resolution, there has to be a petition. Now, his boss, Angie Silva, outlined that to us as well when we met with Weston and himself and Katie somewhere back in the March time. She said, there's a way to bring resolution to this. And she said, you need to get a few people or 20 people or more to sign something to agree with what you want to happen at the lake. And that, from that point, which was a LMD meeting first, sitting in a conference room with Weston and Angie and our friend Katie over here, we went forward and we started just open our hearts, open our eyes, our minds to people saying, we have a vision to restore the lake. We want to restore American Lake to the way it was when people moved here 50 and 60 years ago. We believe it's possible. We don't want to let it go downhill. We don't want to see it polluted. We want this, what's happening, to not keep being progressive. And so with that, basically we're working off the document that Weston had, working off that document. And actually the petition was very clear about outlining what we were supposed to do. And I hope we're about that. I hope that we are going to have a steering committee, move from the advisory committee's levels, which is an advisory LMD, to a steering committee. I hope we start a new LMD that will be real focused on that. I hope that we have a work plan that people can go to at any level, and we become preventative as well as managing the lake. So I stand here tonight with over 150 people's signatures. Many of them are in this room who signed this petition. Some are not, obviously, but there's people behind us in what we're doing. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. That's been 5 minutes. We appreciate your comment.
Mary Hudson.
Hello, my name is Mary Hudson, and I am a resident of Eagle Point on American Lake. I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk to you about our personal feelings and our personal experiences and concerns for the quality of the water on American Lake. I brought a display board today. It actually was created by my grandson, Kingston Rain, for a school project. And he was here last week to talk to you about it, but couldn't come this week. So I promised him that I would bring it to you to show you that we have another generation of residents on American Lake that are very concerned about what's happening to the water. In fact, my granddaughter is also going to be volunteering here very soon to document the invasive weeds and noxious weeds that are around the lake also. So it's a family concern that we have. We're all included on this. 20 years ago, I built my home along the shore of American Lake. I had fond memories of spending my summers here as a child while visiting friends who lived on the lake. So when I moved back to this area and found property bordering the Eagle Point Preserve, I decided that was where I wanted to retire, and I have not regretted that decision. I've had a front row seat to observing all the animals and plants around the lake. I've marveled watching the many eagles, herons, ducks, and yes, even the pesky Canadian geese. Over the years, I've observed the arrival of many migratory birds, especially the coots, which arrive every winter. But this winter, I noticed a decrease in the number of coots, at least at our end of the lake. They used to come and feed right around our docks. This year, I hardly saw any. I was puzzled by this and wondered if this had anything to do with changes on the lake. I had noticed over the past few years how murky and smelly the water had become along my beach. I am not a trained scientist, but I was a fourth grade teacher for 27 years. And I taught my students in science about how changes in the ecosystem can affect the living organisms in a habitat. I was alarmed last year when I saw signs posted around the lake warning everyone to stay out of the water due to toxic algae. I knew that we had a milfoil weed problem, and I had attended several meetings many years ago when this board was being formed. I have since discovered that this board is limited to just milfoil weed control. I want to thank you for your efforts to control that problem, but urge you to now prioritize changing your charter to include problems caused by toxic algae. I want to thank Stan Kovar and Don Russell for educating us on the issue of toxic algae. They have worked tirelessly to get this information out. Now we need to act on it. I no longer feel safe wading into the water along my beach. My grandchildren no longer swim off my beach or around my dock. I live just down from Joel, so what he showed you is what I'm seeing around my beach also. In fact, my grandson decided to make this display board, Restore American Lake, as a topic for his 5th grade exhibition project. These past few weeks, we heard that several beaches along Lake Washington had been closed due to toxic algae and bacteria outbreaks. Even Palmer Lake on Key Peninsula here in Pierce County was closed due to toxic algae. Are we going to be next? I believe that it's much easier to take care of a problem in its early stages. This problem will only get worse with time, and time is running out. Thank you.
Marty Schaefer.
Yes, first of all, I just want to say thank you to each of you serving on the Lakewood Management District. I know it's a lot of effort and work, so thank you for your dedication to that. We really do support and appreciate it. I'd also like to acknowledge that I've lived on American Lake for 25 years. I also live on the property that my wife's family has lived on for 116 years, so we've been a long-time users and beneficiaries of the lake. And the lake life's very important to us. I have 3 areas of concern that I've continued to have and seen addressed in different ways. And so I appreciate the fact that I'm seeing some clarity around that. But the 3 areas that interest me in terms of the long-range need of the lake primarily are the health of the lake. And when I say the health of the lake, there's really 3 areas they've been addressed tonight. And that's invasive species, that's noxious weeds, and the potential of toxic algae blooms or cyanobacteria. And so all 3 of those certainly have an impact on a person's ability to safely use the lake. And so thank you for addressing those. I'm not here to tell you that even though I have an undergraduate degree in environmental science and urban planning, I don't have solutions, but I do know that teams like this are moving in the right direction. So thank you for that. The health of the lake is one area. The other area that has a major concern for me is also the lake level. And so I'm appreciative of the fact that you've moved forward with monitoring the weir. I would suggest to you that I'm hopeful that there's a structure in place to make sure that it is strategically and accurately dealt with. So I'm not sure what that structure is yet. Maybe it's the American Lake Improvement Club. Whomever's doing it, I'm appreciative. And I hope that it continues in their structure to support it. The area that I haven't heard tonight that also concerns me very much is impacted by both the first 2 things I showed. The health of the lake, the environmental health of the lake impacts the ability to use it. And whereas one gentleman said that the cyanobacteria wasn't that significant to him, I can appreciate that. However, we use the lake in the winter. We swim in it often, and I have a water dog as well. And so even though the toxic algae blooms may be in a winter time, you never know when they're going to be, and you never know how toxic they're going to be. So it really does concern me. All that being said, what impacts those is not just the phosphorus counts, but of course the volume of water as well. So the lake level is significant in impacting the health of the lake. It also impacts the other area that I'm concerned about, which is the safety of the lake. People using the lake. So we set up in an area where we can see the majority of the lake and how it's used. I was one who is in full support of the boat licensing. There's 13 people in our family unit that live around and use the lake. We've all been licensed and we use the lake appropriately. I see so many people obviously without boat license because they're going in the wrong directions. They're going inside the buoys. It's literally unsafe. I literally sometimes fear for people that are out swimming because you see the inappropriate activities. I'm also concerned about the amount of lakes. When we had last year, when the lake level was down, and there was less surface area to actually use, you had more boats using less area, and you just had to hold your breath as a person who has a nice boat and you use the lake all these years. There were many evenings that I just was not going to go out. It wasn't worth the risk. And so safety is an issue. And in that, my thoughts on that are that the amount of boats, the size of the boats, and then the boat licensing at some point are going to need to be monitored. And along that line, of course, as we saw the concerns about the invasive species and the mussels and these things, inspections could happen. So I've seen other lakes where they've created monitoring programs. I wish we had something like that, or at least I'm wanting to put that out so that we feel safe about using the lakes. And I don't know why we wouldn't have restrictions on the size of some of the boats and the wake sizes that they make, just like with the sound levels that some of the boats have made in the past. So that's really my concerns. I'd also like to just say that clarity around these issues is extremely helpful for a property owner. I would suggest to all of us that placing the burden on just the property owners to financially turn this around is probably not realistic. And it's probably not even fair. A lot of people who live on the lake don't use the water, or the lake consistently. It needs to be a holistic approach, is my
Thank
thoughts.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer.
Daryl Lowry.
Hi, my name is Darren Lowry. I live at 8925 North Thorn Lane Southwest in Lakewood, and I am the neighbor to Harry Todd Park. So I can only speak about what I see going on at the park or in front of my house. So 2 nights ago, I went swimming with my kids on the dock. We've lived in our house for about 20 years, and we went swimming, and first time ever, I saw like things floating around me, like green stuff. I'm not a biologist. I'm a zoologist. I don't know what that stuff is, but whatever it is, it's nasty, and I've never seen it before. So maybe it's been around, but I don't remember ever swimming in it, and it was gross. And I'm looking over at the park, and there's hundreds of children and families in the same water that I'm in. It can't be healthy for us to all be swimming in that water. I don't think this is really that difficult a problem. I think that what I see is someone coming in kind of after the fact. Some of you invited me to meetings and things. Is I think that we need a team, an advisory committee that meets more often, at least once a month. My committee, the Community Service Advisory Committee, meets every month, and we have business to take care of at every meeting. I think that the Lakewood Management Committee or Advisory Committee needs to meet once a month. I also think they have to have more power in what is actually being done. I think that from the meeting, a small meeting I was at, a lot of us agree that the assessment we pay is way, way too low compared to like Steilacoom Lake or even Lake Lawrence. I think following the example of like Lake Lawrence or Long Lake, like this gentleman, where'd he go? This gentleman over here is talking about. I think following their example and having a committee like they have, or whatever it's called, the Lake Management District or whatever it is, would probably be the best way to try and get ahead of this. The science is there. We have a scientist here right now. They know what to do. We need to get some data collected from the lake. That gentleman right there gave us like 93 years of data on the lake when I was at the meeting about 3-4 months ago. It was kind of amazing to learn so much. Is it Don? Okay. Anyway, a lot of information. I took a limnology course in college and I don't remember hearing any of that stuff. So it was really very important, I think, that we get the message out. But it starts with a leadership team that can get the job done, can assess more money so that we can get the proper people, the scientists to look at our lake and then to figure out a plan. It's not just about treating the lake. We keep talking about treating the lake. I think the first part is we need a leadership team that can do their job. We need to have them decide on the science that needs to be conducted to figure out what's wrong with the lake, or if there is anything wrong with the lake, or if this is a natural cycle or something, and then how to manage it, if there is any management that needs to be done. And I think the science person, this gentleman right here that spoke, I think I was listening very carefully, bless you, to what he said, because it's about treating, it's about being science-y, about how to fix the problem if there is a problem. So that's what I like to see. I feel like if we let this go, maybe it's not that bad right now, but I can see it getting much, much worse if we don't do something about it now while we still can. Well, before it starts costing us millions of dollars and taking money from other resources that we have in the city. So thank you for the time.
Jim Cooper.
Jim Cooper, I live on the north end of the lake off of Veterans Drive. Been there for like 33 years. And I stepped out this morning and I went up to my dock and I looked down there and it was absolutely beautiful. 10 feet down there, there were trout down there. I didn't see any weeds or nasty stuff. Then the algae bacteria that's cyanobacteria that comes out in the wintertime.
I'm sorry,
That is
Mr.
no
Cooper,
problem.
sorry,
Okay.
the people on Zoom need to be able to hear you too.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
And so that's no problem, according to my neighbor who's lived there a long time. If it's not natural to the lake, it's a problem, okay? And somebody said, where does the buck stop? I believe it stops with Kate. She's the chairman of the advisory committee. Now, I got on ChatGPT and I started asking for all kinds of information. I was overwhelmed about the information on this lake. There is so much data that it's, I mean, the data's there, the information there tells about the problems of the lake, the source where it's coming from, talks about the phosphorus and the nitrates and what have you. So I would say to you that we know of the problems. There's the data there. I would recommend and suggest that you get a small group of folks to help you. You all are not going to put this plan together between now and when this 10 years is over with. There's a lot of work to do, and everybody wants to see something happen now. I spoke about a plan of action 2 months ago when I was here, and I'd still like to see something. I would like to volunteer on a subcommittee, and I bet there's 10 more people that would come out and help and work together to put together a plan. Now, it might not be the best plan. We might argue and what have you, but we will come up with something. And once you start something, you get into it and you find that, well, gee, that won't work. This might work. And you just keep moving down the path. So I believe you need to set some goals and objectives to begin to make something happen. It's a big job. I've been an engineer in the business for some 60 years. The last 25 years, it's been in septic systems, designing them commercial and for houses and what have you. So I'm really intimately familiar with the problems they create. They have phosphorus and they have nitrate. I believe a lot of that is causing our problem. So that's just my suggestion. I think it's also very important that all these folks that stood up here and asked for things and recommended things, that we get an answer. Okay, a lot of folks have asked for stuff, but the last time I was here, I never got an answer about putting a plan of action together. Yes, no, we won't, or maybe. So we, the people who are responsible for this lake and live on it, we want some answers. We want to see some action, but we're all prepared to help you in doing this. Thanks.
A clarification?
Jim,
Can I ask you a clarification?
would you go back to the?
Can you return to the podium, please? Thank you.
So at least 2 or 3 months ago, especially at the last regular meeting, everybody here recognized that, and even before that meeting, we've been discussing that we want to see the LMD evolve, change, continue, and be broader. And so we initiated wanting to do monthly meetings to get a plan together to figure out how to go forward with that. Did we not articulate well enough that that's in fact exactly what we're trying to do now, and that we are trying to work towards a plan? Now we haven't, and as part of the public listening is part of one of the steps to try and do that. And we haven't done something like a subcommittee like you recommended. But is it not clear to everybody that we're already trying to do exactly what you're asking?
It may have not been so much to me, and I just started this in the last 4 months. And I'm very glad to see these monthly meetings ongoing, and that was one of the thoughts that I have. So I compliment you for doing that. And I'm not trying to be adversarial. I'm just trying to.
But I'm wondering whether we're not articulating well enough that what we want to do is exactly what you're talking about, which is actually come up with a plan for how this will renew and what the specifics are. And we may need to broaden exactly how we're doing that, but we certainly want everybody to understand that that is our goal, especially with these monthly meetings and going forward.
I appreciate that. And like I said, I'm ready to help you folks in any way that I can.
Okay.
And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of others. So
yeah,
I'd say start getting on the phone and tapping us, and let's brainstorm how we're going to fix this.
Thank you.
Brian, is it Wilson? Or Williams? First name of Brian. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't. Now there is a Ron Dagley that did not put yes or no for speaking. Is that? It looks like Dagly. Oh, so you didn't want to speak? Okay, you didn't circle. That's why I asked. Neither of you. Okay, then we have exhausted the list of speakers. Is there anyone that would like?
We are now doing people on Zoom that would like to speak.
Zoom.
Yes.
Cindy P.
Mr. Barry Halverson would like to speak on Zoom.
Please.
Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you just fine, Mr. Halverson.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, is Kate Foster there?
Yes, that is me speaking.
Did you get the email I sent you about 1 o'clock this afternoon, and did that get out to the board members?
I do have it. It was not given to the board members. Heidi, our city attorney, is distributing them now.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, Chair. My name is Barry Halverson, co-chair of the Lake Lawrence Lake Management District, and I'm also the Washington State Lake Management District Coordinator. Tonight, I would like to provide some insight into the differences between an advisory and steering committee. How do you know if you are an advisory or steering committee? Well, the Lake Management District, as the Lake Management District Coordinator, I contacted all of the lakes, the steering or advisory committees, and the administrative personnel at the Caesar County that did them. As of July 2026, there were 25 known LMDs in Washington State, 26 the week before. One did not renew. The number fluctuates between 25 and 30 depending on authorization and renewals. Unfortunately, the biggest issue with Lake Management District renewal is the citizens who are paying the majority of the cost for the LMD don't feel their voices are being heard and they have little or no input to the health of their lake. Forming steering committees versus advisory committees and giving the citizens that live there more ownership of the process has not only kept LMDs alive, but thriving for those that have made that step to a steering committee. Of the 25 current LMDs, 15 have steering committees and 10 have advisory committees. That was determined by contacting, as I said, every LMD advisory or steering committee, talking to the citizen volunteers, and talking to the city county LMD administrators. I talked to your LMD administrators back in November and December of 2022. I talked to Paul Busich and Weston Ott. And they were asked these 7 questions. Who facilitates the LMD meetings? Who sets the dates and schedules for the LMD meetings? Who writes and publishes the LMD agenda? Who writes, publishes the LMD meeting minutes? Who directs the LMD budget? Who determines the work plan for the LMD? And who is responsible for execution of that work plan? The decision criteria for determining advisory or steering committee was the answers to those questions. If you showed 4 or more were performed by the city or county LMD administrator, then we identified the LMD as having an advisory committee versus a steering. If the reverse were true, we identified the LMD as having a steering committee. Many replied that the responsibilities for some were shared. If the majority of the answers were shared, the LMD was considered to be an advisory committee. The answers to 2 questions, who directs the budget and who determines the work plan, were identified as key for a committee to being designated as a steering versus advisory. Other considerations that may be applicable to this board, there are multiple scenarios. The city, county, LMD citizen groups need to determine together what they are capable of doing. Some LMDs do not have experienced, knowledgeable people to enable execution, like writing RFPs, resolutions, contracts, negotiating with contractors, knowledge of lake science, etc. But when you find that expertise, cities and counties should take advantage of that. It's a valuable resource that you just can't do without it. So you've got a lot of folks around American Lake, and I've heard several of them testify tonight, that have that valuable expertise. Some LMDs that have lacked experience in one or more areas have hired consultants to assist them. There are approximately 100 special use districts in Washington State formed under RCW 8538. Most of these are drainage districts, but some are dual, having both drainage systems and at the end having a lake, which is why they can form under that RCW. We have 2 such lakes in Thurston County, Scott Lake and Black Lake. They are totally autonomous districts, citizen-led and managed. There are also approximately 100 lake improvement districts formed under RCW 9024 prior to 1985. Once RCW 3661 was passed, no other lake could form under RCW 9024, but these 100 or so lake improvement districts continued because they didn't want to lose that valuable opportunity. These also are totally autonomous districts, citizen-led and managed. These 2 types of districts are similar to steering committees, and they do great across Washington State. They perform all the functions that any city county would perform for an LMD, which takes the argument away from the cities and counties. The citizen-led efforts do not work. None of these districts have had any legal or liability issues. For cities, counties to assume local lake residents cannot manage their lakes is totally misguided. They can and do, and have thrived throughout Washington State. Cities, counties always point to legal and liability issues. That can easily be resolved by detailing in an SOP or other document the roles and responsibilities in ensuring oversight and administration of
Mr.
the city,
Halverson?
county.
Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Hamilton, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but your 5 minutes is up.
Okay, I'll come back after.
Okay, thank you very much. Now that we have gone through all scheduled, in-person, and Zoom speakers, the committee may call on more or people to speak an additional time if they so wish.
There were anyone? Well, I'll start at the back. The gentleman, and would you state your name again?
Brian Ford. I'll be brief. Thank you for the 5 minutes, and I'll talk about the pilot program that I turned into you guys. It's about talking about invasive species, specifically zebra, golden, and quagga mussels. Unlike milfoil, which can be managed, mussels are not something we can realistically remove once they're established. They attach to docks, boats, and infrastructure. They change the ecosystem and create long-term costs that are very difficult to reverse. This is about prevention. The reason I'm bringing this up now is timing. The LMD is being discussed and shaped for the next cycle. If invasive species prevention isn't included in that framework now, it likely won't be visited for another decade. I'm not suggesting a large or complicated program. What I've put together is a simple pilot concept focused on the 2 main public boat launches. The idea would be to start small, basic signage promoting clean, drain, and dry practices, simple outreach and education, possibly a volunteer presence during peak season. This would not be enforcement heavy. It would be about awareness, prevention, and gathering information. I also think there's an opportunity for partnership here. The Improvement Club, American Lake Improvement Club, could potentially help support parts of this effort, for example, funding signage or helping with volunteer coordination. At the same time, the city's role would be important, particularly in terms of approval and coordination at the launch sites. I could see this becoming a collaborative effort between the city and the Improvement Club and the LMD and lake residents. A relatively small investment now could help prevent a larger problem in the future. Lake Tahoe provides a good example of what proactive prevention can look like. They have implemented one of the most comprehensive aquatic invasive species prevention programs in the country, including mandatory boat inspections, controlled launch access, and a seal tag program. Their program has successfully prevented the introduction of invasive mussels despite heavy recreational use. While American Lake does not need to duplicate Tahoe's system, it demonstrates that focusing prevention efforts at key access points can be effective. My main goal is simply to make sure this topic is part of the conversation as the next LMD is being developed. Keeping mussels out of American Lake would be a significant accomplishment, not just for current lake users, but for future generations as well. Thank you.
Janet?
I'm not going to have you do the right. So Brian and I we both are on the American Lake Improvement Club board, and we would like to talk about the American Lake Improvement Club and what we can do and what we can't do. So why don't you start with number 2 there?
Okay.
Read fast.
The American Lake Improvement Club was started in 1960 as a way for neighbors to have a collective voice. The fact that their collective voice can get loud and boisterous at annual meetings is a testament to the passion that lakeshore owners feel for the American lake they love. It's a lake that feeds our souls.
The first meetings were in response to a weir that needed to be constructed to control flooding of the homes being built on the shoreline. Neighbors on the bluffs liked the high water because their docks were closer to their homes. Neighbors on the shores obviously preferred dried basements. They came together, each promoting their ideas for a solution. Somehow they eventually reached a consensus about a weir. They were then able to cooperate with the federal government and Pierce County to get legal access to maintain a flood control weir that set our lake level at a consistent 233 feet above sea level.
Pattern of promotion and cooperation became set in the bylaws, which read, "The objectives of the club shall be to promote safe practices and usage of the lake as a recreational water area, to cooperate with public officials in the control of lake usage in matters affecting health, safety, and welfare, and to promote other efforts and projects as may be appropriate." The Improvement Club was not formed with any political, commercial, or cultural objective. It serves as a forum for anyone who owns property to bring up their concerns about issues that affect everyone.
So I'm just going to zip through these next ones. There have been some tough issues to tackle, such as the chaos and noise associated with the county park operating seaplane base. Some of you might remember that. Hydroplanes were fast and loud. Petitions to outlaw jet skis were on both Steilacoom and American Lakes were circulated. But again, finding ways to agree on what to promote and how to cooperate, they worked with the county sheriff and parks department to modify a noise ordinance.
The residents decided to take responsibility for improving boating safety. They reported records of accidents, including deaths and citations issued to the Improvement Club. They collected funds and voluntarily began setting buoys 200 feet from the shoreline, a practice that continues today.
When water levels were falling recently, the ALIC board invited the Pierce County surface water engineer to address this group. His information eventually led to Pierce County abandoning their practice of lowering the lake level artificially, allowing the lake to come back to its normal level. The ALIC is monitoring the weir now to make sure the level is not artificially changed again. Let's go. Some issues continue.
You want me to?
Read
Okay.
that one.
Some issues continue. Overcrowding of boat traffic on the water is still a problem. Parking for boat trailers remains unresolved. Attempts to address toxic algae blooms began when the health department closing the lake when there were blooms. They took samples from Tilikum and seemed baffled when the blooms cleared up in March and April. Studies were undertaken to determine the source of the nutrients feeding the blooms. The health department in Pierce County paid for a study. They came back with their findings suggesting the Improvement Club should participate financially in resolving the problem. But at the time, the residents felt it should not fall to them to pay for solving a problem they did not create. Perhaps that option has changed now.
By supporting the formation of a lake management district, the ALIC was able to help establish a legal pathway for funds to be collected to successfully reduce the exploding growth of Eurasian water milfoil. In the future, the ALIC will make efforts to support education of the LMD board and lakeshore owners about issues in lake water quality and ecology.
The American Lake Improvement Club is not a lake management district, but it can act as a voice to inform the LMD. It will remain true to its objectives, promoting safety and recreation, healthy water for people and wildlife, and other appropriate projects. It is committed to cooperating with legal authority to meet those objectives. It is open for any shore owner to bring up any issue that affects us all. To keep up with the Improvement Club or ask questions, go to the website, AmericanLakeImprovementClub.com.
Thank you.
Anyone, Mark Pfeiffer, do you?
Heard a lot of Mark Pfeiffer, heard a lot of preaching to the choir, as the saying goes. Yeah, I don't think anybody on the advisory committee, whether it's advisory or steering, frankly, that's a difference or a distinction without a difference. Because in this city, you know, all the important decisions eventually have to be approved by the city council, not by the LMD manager. No, it's by the city council and the city manager. But again, to reiterate, all of this stuff that needs to be done if we're going to save the lake isn't going to happen unless we get another 10, 20, or 30-year extension. It's not an extension. You have to go back out and resolicit all the property owners and get that 50% plus one of the respondents, which, you know, wasn't universal back 8 years ago. You know, I mean, I first got involved in this thing when my dear wife, that's her right there, Kate, you know, who had been working with Janet Spingath and the L's, you know, through the American Lake Improvement Club. We had a granddaughter born, and my wife had to go down to California to kind of help out our daughter. And so I went to the meeting. Well, it wound up that I was the first chair of the LMD, worked with Mr. Busich, and it wouldn't have happened if Mr. Busich hadn't sold it to the city council. Now it's going to have to get sold to the property owners. Otherwise, there won't be an LMD. Now, as far as what the LMD could do now, well, you know, the statement of work, or rather the scope, if you will, the charter for the LMD, is they can address virtually any aquatic plant, any, if it's deemed to be invasive or otherwise detrimental. I don't know about the mussels. You know, that's not flora, that's fauna, I do believe. But it would be certainly simple enough on the next iteration to write that in, you know. But again, there's no money. The money, the 66 cents was for Eurasian milfoil eradication or control. We know you're not going to eradicate it because you can't. You can control it, but you can't eradicate it. And this, I think at the June meeting, there was a clarification that yes, that assessment, that 66 cents per linear foot, could be increased by 10%. Well, I would highly recommend that you don't go there, because if you do, because when we floated this thing way back in 2007 or 2006, 2007, or 16, I'm sorry. Nobody talked to the property owners about that. What everybody was told was that the assessment was fixed. The only thing the LMD could do is not collect a year's of assessment if they didn't need the money, but they couldn't increase it. They couldn't reduce it. It was either don't collect it or collect it. And if you go back out now with a 10% increase, you could lose what little support remains from that exercise we went through back in I guess 2016, started in 2016. It takes about a year and a half to get it done. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Joel, did you have?
I was going to finish that little PowerPoint thing, but again, Mark is right, James is right. We're preaching to the choir. Everybody in here, I think, is in agreement. I don't need to do that. But what I really would like to say is that information is key. If we're going to sell what needs to be done with this lake to the rest of the property owners, the plan to succeed has to be a plan to educate and inform. And when we heard from others that says, are we even doing this? It's because they've not been educated and informed that this is actually even being implemented, right? So if this is really going to work, at the risk of sounding like a government employee, we need to have a plan on how to make a plan. Because right now, we don't have the information out there. The people don't really know. There's a lot of misinformation. It comes from all directions. People come and ask me questions all the time that I really don't dare give an answer to, because even though I got an answer from somebody maybe at the city or somebody on the board or so, who knows what, it's not always consistent. Even talking times tonight was like, I don't know till I get here what it is. So somehow or another, we need to have a better communication process between those that really do want to help. And we do want to help. We are not adversaries. We are worker bees if you'll give us the job. But again, that takes coordination and communication. That, I think, is the most frustrating part of most of the shoreline owners that want to do something. And like I say, you know, my little area, I'm happy to take care of my little area if somebody will let me, right? But that's not really the bigger problem. The bigger problem is the lake as a whole. And phosphorus is really the kingpin to it all. And if we can get to it early enough that we can make this work out well, ecologically, economically, save our lake from becoming some of the other tragedies that we have in our county, let's start now. But let's start with a plan of information and education so that, like Mark says, you know, to go back and ask for an increase, The only way you can do that and not lose people is if they see the need. But if they don't know anything and you say, oh, by the way, here's a bill, that's an automatic thumbs down. So they need to know. They need to know what you know, what we know. And I don't feel that they do right now. To be quite honest with you, when we try and do any publicity around here, we have a emailing list of about 140 people, something like that. We're missing the vast majority of shoreline owners. We can't mobilize them in 2 days, sending something in snail mail. You know, we can't do anything like that. So we had a tremendous amount of work to get our meeting a week ago. It didn't happen. And, you know, I'm not blaming people. I'm just saying that we had 2 weeks to get that steam rolling. And now we had 2 days. It just doesn't happen, right? And it's an information process. We need to somehow create that and make it a system in such a way that people can automatically go to it. An online presence is good, but people really, if they're not interested, they don't access. So we've got to figure out a publicity program to get people to understand what's going on with our lake and what's going on with your council, which is so important because the power's in your hands. And I think you'll be surprised at how many people understand that they want a better lake, and they will pay. The people I've known will pay. And if we have to pay personally to do some studies and get some data together so that we can make an assessment, I think we can get it. You know, it's out there. We just have to make it work. All right. Thank you so much.
Janet?
Before Janet can go again, I want to make sure that all people on Zoom have a chance to go again. I just want to be consistent in our,
A Zoom person,
yeah, I think Mr. Barry Halverson wanted to speak
Barry?
again.
Halverson, would you like to speak, please?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to end by where I left off. There's been some discussion about, you know, you're just doing milfoil, and it may not be, you may not be able to do other things. Well, the APAM and the RCW say otherwise. You can do all your cyanobacteria management. You can do any type of invasive or even nuisance weed. You can do shoreline weeds. You can work with your city noxious weed department to assist with that. One of the key things that I think, and I've heard this from several speakers tonight, is open dialogue between members, the board, and staff is critical. Setting limits on speaking is not helpful and has a tendency to stifle participation. Now, doing that for outside persons like myself, that's fine, 3 to 5 minutes, but not for your members. Having 3 board members doesn't seem to be representative of such a large lake and community. And I say that based on my experience as the Washington State LMD coordinator. Very, very few advisory or steering committees have less than 5 on their committee. Most have 10 or more. Provides a broader opportunity for every area on a lake to be represented. For example, Lake Lawrence, we have 17. Every one of our HOAs has between 1 and 5 members based on the number or population of that HOA. We have board members for different regions around our lake, and our lake is smaller than yours. And what that does is it brings in a larger group of people, more representative of the lake, and it helps you establish communication to your residents. I know you've got several HOAs around American Lake, and those HOA representatives can take that back to the board in their annual membership meetings and talk to them about what's going on. And Mr. Pfeiffer and several others have said that, you know, a communication plan is essential. It absolutely is. I have orchestrated 3 lake management district renewals for Lake Lawrence over the last 18 years. I've assisted all 4 LMDs in Thurston County renew or start an LMD. I've assisted Mason County, Kitsap County, and others. Appendix O of our SOP, which I put an excerpt of that in the information that I sent to Ms. Foster. I would encourage you to take a look at it. Appendix O is the how you renew or how you start a lake management district step by step. And Weston, I'll just say that that is being renewed right now, updated. And as soon as I get it, I will send it to you so you can get it out to your advisory committee members, because it takes you through the entire process step by step. The RCW does that very intermittently. It's very difficult to follow the RCW on LMD renewals. So with that, I just say, keep doing what you're doing, but if you don't get the community involved, you don't get a communications plan out there, you don't get the LMD renewed, your last 10 years will have been for nothing. Your milfoil will come back. Your cyanobacteria is going to get worse. As an example, Lake Lawrence is currently under a warning level for cyanobacteria. 17 years ago, I started 18 years ago with this LMD. 17 years ago, we had blooms in November, December. 10 years ago, we had blooms in September, October, November, December. Last year, we had them in June through December. This year, they started in May. We've had 3 of them already this year. So the comments from the presenters that, this is only going to get worse, we need to get on it before it does, is absolutely what needs to happen. You need to get ahead of it, not behind it. Right now, it's going to cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars to remediate and mitigate the problems that we're having here. Seems like you have a problem that is just starting in its infancy and could probably do you very well to start doing this early with a cyanobacteria management plan study and finding out where your phosphorus is coming into your lake. Like one of your speakers, I believe it was Mr. Steelhammer, said, find out where your vents are coming in and cap them with phosphorus. Cap the phosphorus with zero valent iron or another product that you all decide you want to do. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. And Weston and Chair, I'm available anytime to come and talk to you, your board,
Thank
or
you, Mr.
jump on a
Halverson.
virtual meeting.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Janet, you were up there, Janet.
This is just to address the education ideas. Jeff Tepper had spoken to me as well, saying we need more education. And so from the ALIC, we are allowed to have we've got a space in Stroll magazine every month. We can put stuff in there about education. We're having Lakeside, ALIC is sponsoring Lakeside Lectures. Our first one is October 23rd, where Jeff will be the speaker. It's going to be at the Tillicum Community Hall. And also, if an idea is yard signs, putting out, because we live behind gates. We see each other maybe from the front of where the docks are. We don't have a common street that we live on, but the lake is common to us. So if people would be willing to put out yard signs, just like, check this website or find out more about the lake, or just some sort of education like that, and we could volunteer to put them out and get the word out that way. That's all.
Again, just quickly, as a resident of the lake, you come back and ask me for some money, I'm going to ask you to justify the money. Why do you need the money? What are you going to fix? What's the problem? What's causing the problem? So that goes back to putting the plan together, like a lot of folks have talked about. And we got, 18 months before this LMD is over with, and you have to justify that. I think part of that planning will justify that. Okay, and again, I'm prepared to help. And there's a whole group out here ready to help you put this together. And one last thing I'd say about on the communications, since there's 150 of us or so, we could take and identify persons on the lake strategically and give them a responsibility for communicating with 20 neighbors in your area, either handouts or doing something and knocking on doors and telling them about the lake. And my other point would be, I just thought of this idea, gathering people together in a room and brainstorming and coming up with ideas, putting them on a chart is a good way to get started on some of this stuff. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak?
If no one else in person or Zoom would like to speak, we can move on to next steps. Chair Reed.
Does anyone on the board have anything they'd like to focus on? And what maybe the city can help us with?
I had some questions for Kyle and Pepper, but they are no longer here, so process for getting data that Jeff would be concerned with. Like to maybe follow up with him at a later date to be able to put together a program to gather data, where to gather it, how often. He mentioned types of data that we're supposed to get. Volunteer. We have some trained people around this lake that gather the data. Russell started that back in 2000, and Anna and I were able to join with him in 2014. We've been doing it ever since. And Island also participated in that. Have the expertise. We just have to have the program written for us. And this committee to be able to follow up with him. As far as Mr. Steelhammer goes, he suggested doing early applications with lighter rates and those kinds of things. My question to him is, can you feel confident in doing an April or May survey and be able to capture the amount of spray spots to be able to do that and do it before, by June 1st. That was my question with him, because currently we don't do the surveys until the end of follow-up surveys later. So those are the kinds of things I want to follow up on.
It's a comment to all of you. This group has discussed, and we've heard discussions from the public about tackling a broader range of water quality issues, including potentially invasive mammals or species. And there's some pretty good science as to different ways to tackle that, or different herbicides, maybe the zero valent island or things of that nature. One of the things that also has been discussed a little bit is there a way to broaden the funding base beyond just the shoreline owners? That seems to be a very, very difficult thing, but I would guess that at least 50% of the users of the lake are non-residents of the lake. So how to generate ideas that might be feasible certainly would be of interest to receive. And also in terms of lake safety, a lot of us who live on the lake, our docks are getting torn up, the boats are getting bigger, they're getting deeper drafts, the wakes are terrible, there's more boats. To try and discuss whether that's within the purview of a lake management district dealing with water quality and maybe sediment issues, or maybe that is within the purview of overall lake health and safety, is kind of a tough question to tackle. And if people have some specific ideas how that might fit in, or what an LMD might specifically be able to do in those arenas, that would be very good to know. I think more of the water quality and the sediment quality issues are more within what we had previously perceived as the expansion of the LMD, but we also understand, living on the lake, all the other related issues, and the tax base being pretty limited to the shoreline owners only, and the Fort and Camp Murray contributing to this tax base. We're trying to deal with it. So if people have specific recommendations or things to banty about and consider on those kinds of topics, I would certainly be interested in reading it and hearing it. In what form we can do that going forward, I don't know, but certainly we can receive anything specific that people might say. What I'd like not to do is hear generalities like, well, we ought to tackle boat safety. I understand the issue, but how do you then turn around and make that into an actionable process or an actionable item? That's the difficulty, and certainly I would love to hear specific ideas on specific topics of concern.
Other comments? My one question would be, does the committee want to recommend or suggest a follow-on meeting, an open meeting like this, to gather more information from people that were not able to attend this meeting? And if we do want to do that, we need to figure out schedule and get it on the calendar and do it in, I would suggest doing it in council chambers because it's a center point for community comments. And there's also all the facility here with the computers and Zooming.
I'm happy to continue discussions, whether it be listening or active meeting discussions. I'm envisioning we're going to do it monthly, whether it be just listening, a combination. I happen to be personally available to be here the last week of August, first week of September. Otherwise, I'm actually out of touch and out of town. But if we can schedule things, whether it be a working meeting, whether it be a listening meeting, I'm all for doing that.
My question to Heidi would be, we are set up for quarterly meetings and regular meetings, but for listening meetings such as this, and monthly or every 3 or 4 weeks, if whatever our schedule that we deem advisable.
As far as regular meetings go, and I think I've opined on this a little bit with you before, you've intended to have regular meetings, but I'm not sure they meet the legal definition of regular meetings because you've been trying to make sure that you have a quorum of people, and so the date has moved around a little bit. So under the law, any meeting that is not a regular meeting is a special meeting. And so if you want to have another listening session, a work session, whatever it is you'd want to have, if it's not a regular meeting, it's a special meeting. The only procedural requirements of a special meeting are that you do the 24 hours notice and that the agenda be followed. You can't do new and interesting things beyond the agenda because you haven't told the public that's what you're going to do. I will say that you received some comments tonight about enough advance notice if you're having a listening session or something where you're going to do a lot with the public, that there be enough time and enough word getting out to people beyond that legal bare minimum, because the sentiment is that there's a great deal of interest that people are having and they want to have that opportunity to be heard. If it's a listening session, they may want to attend if it's not a listening session. So does that answer your question? Maybe, maybe not.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
My recollection is that at our last regular meeting, quarterly meeting, is that we had this
Correct.
Seems like we've already made that decision to do monthly. But that listen session or a committee session, or maybe involve other people, be able to take on, I would envision.
Right. So, not so much a legal question, but what I would tell you is if you're going to do monthly meetings, I would strongly encourage you to figure out a regular schedule of those meetings so that your public knows and that the word can go out that every, third Tuesday
5th of every month or something like that.
in December. Yeah, something like that. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, but it could be either a date driven or it could be a set, like the third Wednesday or the third Thursday or a particular date or whatever way you'd want to do it. Yeah.
So does that
Can I-
turn that into a scheduled meeting then?
Not really. But as long as you get the agenda out, you can put your schedule out well in advance. And then as long as the agenda goes out at least 24 hours in advance, you're fine. I think there's a real question with this group about what your regular meetings are. And I would need to look into how to establish regular meetings again for you so that you do have something that's truly a regular meeting.
Surveys, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I may be wrong about this, but I think that your regular meeting was getting scheduled in order to make sure you had a quorum. It was being scheduled by availability. It wasn't being scheduled like on a regular schedule, which is part of the issue. And we want a quorum, obviously. That was more important than having it be a regular meeting. As long as you properly notice it, you're fine. So there will be some question as to how to do that. The second part of what you're getting at, though, and I don't want to necessarily go overboard in what you're asking, my perception is that you have things that may be able to be done by this LMD in the remaining time of this LMD. There may also be things that would necessarily go into a potential new LMD. And that might be an additional separate group. That may be your American Lake Improvement Club. That may be a different track entirely, because it may not necessarily fall within this LMD to create a new LMD. So I can come back to you with some specifics on that. Now, as to the idea of renewing an LMD, that is a fresh topic to me. But what I would share with you is we heard about some things. The invasive mussels, that's not going to be covered in just a renewal on aquatic plants, right? So if you want to consider some of those kinds of things, you may need to do a new.
Now, I see those broadening issues.
That's, and that's probably where you are at right now, is trying to figure out what things are simply not going to come before this LMD, but they are going to be put into the channel for a new LMD.
I would like to interject and say that the council chamber, we do have a council chamber availability on August 27th. It is a Thursday.
As a list,
Works for me.
as another listening meeting, is that what you're looking at?
I'm
To
just-
encourage other people that are not available at the 5 o'clock, but at a later date, at later time frame?
What time do you propose for this listening session?
Bert?
I am not
Except-
available on the 27th. I'm out of town.
Okay. Even if,
Let me check.
okay.
I'm available 27th. Whether we're doing listenings, I'm happy to do more listening, but I also wouldn't mind having an opportunity to do some work. And so can we split it?
So the next regular session is scheduled for September 3rd.
Oh, sorry.
That is our LMD quarterly meeting.
Oh, sorry, I might have misspoke. Give me a second to figure that out.
Well, I certainly would like to capture other people that are not available, that may not have been.
Here last week, but didn't make it this week, especially.
Madam Chair, I think what you're also trying to clarify is a start time of 7 PM and asking for board consensus at that, for that start time as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And does the board agree?
For
On which date?
the 27th of August, did you say? Or are you checking on that?
So the council chambers are available August 27th. I misspoke about the next quarterly meeting. It is in September. I thought it was September 3rd. That was incorrect. I have to follow up with you guys on the date for the next quarterly ALMD meeting. But in terms of a listening session, if you guys would like to do that on the 27th or a work session, it can be either or a hybrid.
Or a hybrid?
It's
So-
basically your call of what you want to do and when. We are just making sure the council chambers are available, and if they aren't, we can recommend a different location.
So clarification for me that
Yes, that is correct.
available on the
Okay.
I'm available.
Then yes, let's go forward.
Is that a consensus?
That's a consensus of the board.
My preference would be a hybrid meeting myself.
So just so that we know what our homework is, my understanding is there are remaining questions for Kyle Steelhammer and Jeff Tepper regarding data gathering and also the question of confidence in an April and May survey, given the need for treatment by June 1st.
Yeah, so that's something I probably would think we could handle on a work session. Jeff, Kyle.
Okay. The other homework question I heard was how to broaden the funding base beyond the lakefront owners, if there are some options for doing that. And then also whether or not boat problems would fall within the purview of the ALMD.
Well, if the staff or the city has any input on that, that'd be great. But also if the public has any input on that or ideas on that, it would be great as well. I do have one more question for you, Heidi, that might, you may not know, but might need research. If we chose to form a subcommittee of public members that might want to assist, do you know the process that we would do that by, or can we do that? As was suggested by the public today.
You may be getting a little bit diffuse from the original delegation of authority by the city council. However, if you were delegating work that would ultimately come back to you as the committee, and you as the committee synthesized it and put it through, and to then decide where it fits in your recommendation as the board or the committee, and what then gets sent to the council, then yeah, you can have some committees do stuff.
So at the next meeting, can you advise us as to how we would officially form one if we want to?
I can do that. I will tell you that one of the questions is always going to be, if something has to do with the condition of the lake as experienced by a lakefront owner, the experts are absolutely the lakefront owners. If the question has more to do with a science base or that would require sort of an objective look at it, then you may end up in a situation where even though the lakefront owners have some expertise, you need to find a way to make that expertise non-biased as to also being a lakefront owner.
Understood.
So that's something that the city council may or may not be concerned about when it comes to them, but anything you recommend then goes to the city council.
Understood. Understood.
Correct.
Oh, Weston?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing I would this is just a comment. There's been some discussion about broadening the funding. I just want to acknowledge that we have received 2 grants from Department of Ecology that would equal roughly 6 years of the assessment in its entirety. That's funded out of your licensing of your boat. So they only give out about 5 of those a year. American Lake's done very well on that grant funding. So again, just want to acknowledge their contribution to the ALMD.
So are we in agreement that 27th at 7 o'clock? We'll notice, as you've noticed, the lakefront owners.
So I'd like.
We can make that happen, yes.
But in order to help Katie get that notification out, we'll need the agenda items as those have to be published, as our meeting is narrowly focused on those items, as I understand.
Yes, I will send an email probably tomorrow to the board to ask for agenda items and confirm the meeting date and time.
Like the word that they'll end is.
Okay.
With that, no other comments, then the meeting is adjourned at 7:10. The listening meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair.